This is the Footbrawl Podcast with your hosts, Tyler, Andy, and Boyer.
Welcome back to the Mantasy Footbrawl Podcast, presented by the Performance Enhancing Dads. You got me, Tyler, as your best host. Boyer, he's all right. And then Stu. What's going on, fellas?
Not a lot.
I'm just happy to be not the shitty Tyler and be all right this week.
Yeah, he was a little gentler this week.
You had a good fantasy week. I figured I'd lay off of you.
I appreciate it.
But anyway, Boyer, you acquired Ryan Tannehill from Walker for one draft dollar in 22 and one in 23. What was the thought process behind that one?
Tannehill, mostly that Cousins he's hot right now. And he's had these moments, these streaks where he's a great fantasy quarterback, but he never ends up higher than like quarterback 10 over the year, which means that he's going to have some down weeks. And to really solidify that spot, I felt like I needed a for sure playable quarterback. I wanted Tannehill in the draft. I actually offered Walker a lot more than what I ended up getting him for after the draft in week 1 and in week 2. So he said he was ready to move Tannehill. At that point, Cousins was working out for me. So I said 1-1, and he was ready to move on, probably free up a roster spot so he can try and get some upside on his team before he goes into sell mode and try and salvage the season. So I'm happy with it. I think it worked out for me, at least. Walker got a little bit out of it. Mostly, I think freeing the roster spot is what he wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, and then you started with Cousins and Winston.
Right.
Then you drop Cousins, and then you pick Cousins back up and drop Winston. And now
He
you
didn't listen to me.
And now you got Tannehill. So your quarterback roulette's happening, and hopefully these two will solidify that for you. You won't have to worry about that near as much moving forward.
Yeah, I think picking between the two of them will be tough, but I'm done having to pick them off waivers, so I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the AJ Brown injury is obviously a bummer, but you got him for a good price, and he's a solid fantasy quarterback. So great move for you. I'm going to take 10 seconds to harp on Walker. Walker paid $4 for him in the draft. He didn't have money to afford to spend any money on a backup quarterback that rode his bench for 3 weeks, and then he sold for half the money for the next couple of years. So terrible investment and for money and roster management, and this is where he's at. So do better, bud.
Fair enough. All right. So we had McCaffrey go down. That definitely didn't help Paul, but still got the win.
And I just gave him Chuba before the price went sky high, so good timing there, Paul.
And then this was a week we were supposed to get the W on him, and we couldn't do it. AJ Brown and Sterling Shepard go down with hammies. Lockett goes down with a knee. Juju has a rib issue, and James White is out with a hip. So any of these giant fantasy implications that we need to worry about?
I mean, obviously McCaffrey and AJ Brown are the big ones. From Paul's perspective, he's got the handcuffs, so production's going to go down, but he's got his roster's fine. He knows what to do. The AJ Brown injury is going to impact Tannehill. It's going to impact Julio. I would say it's going to impact Derrick Henry, but I really don't think they can give him any more than they're already giving him. So, that's a bummer for Chris. Sterling Shepard's hammy, and Slayton, I think, had a hammy too. I have not been on the Giants receivers just because they have so many of them. So if you were playing that game, good luck.
Galladay would be the guy now.
Yeah, and Galladay's been mildly productive.
He's the only wide receiver left.
True.
They got Kadarius Toney they've been trying to work in, but Galladay gets an uptick. Saquon should get an uptick in receiving yards because of it. Both on my team, both Giants, so I'm not sure that I like that, but I got them.
Sounds right.
I don't
on
think
you for investing in the Giants.
And the
right.
Lions. Let's talk about that for a moment.
But Lockett, I don't think is going to be a big issue. He'll be back.
Yeah.
Juju, I'm not sure he's going to be sitting out much either. This James White thing does seem to.
It was pretty serious from what I understand.
But I don't know what to do with that. Damian Harris didn't look great. Do they bring in Stevenson? Do they bring in JJ Taylor? What do they do there? I don't know. As always, the goal is to avoid New England running backs. And at that point, if it's not Damian Harris, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. New England spreads the ball out a lot, but there's one less guy to spread it to. So probably a slight uptick, but who knows who their pass catching back's going to be. We'll have to see, but it's a bummer. James White's one of those steady guys who's been around forever, and you hate to see him go down.
Yep. All right. Boyer, you want to jump into the week 3 recap for us?
Yeah. So starting with Fryer and Robbie. Robbie took an early lead on Sunday, and he refused to give it up, with Derrick Henry doing normal Derrick Henry things, Thielen keeping Father Time at bay. Robbie had just enough to beat Fryer, whose Brady Evans stack is starting to pay dividends. Kittle finally performed for Fryer as well, but at the end of the day, the rest of Fryer's team let him down, 92-82. In duo versus Paul, I almost jinxed Paul, saying that the only way we have a chance is for Paul's team to have an injury, and it happened with CMC going down. It didn't matter. Duo tried admirably to remain competitive, taking an early lead, led by gains from Josh Allen with 37 points. Chris Carson had a decent game as well, but the rest of his team also let him down. This is going to be a pretty common theme for this week because everyone kind of sucks. Paul's team was able to pull himself up to a respectable score even without CMC. Still, it was close, 90-88. Tyler and Andy. Ty's comeback bid fell just short, trailing by about 30 points with Dak and Lamb stacked and projected to take the W home. Andy got there with monster gains from Herbert and again from Mike Williams. Ty's running backs came alive with Saquon and Gibson at 15-16 respectively. Ty's tight end continues to be a problem with a total of 0.4 points from that position. Despite the Cowboys putting up 41 points, it was the Zeke show and the Dak Lamb stack fell just short. Ty lost 109-106. Heartbreaker Ty. Chris and Charlie. Speaking of Zeke, Charlie got big games from Zeke with 23 points to go along with Eckler 16 and Madison 17 in the running back spots. Lamar and Keenan Allen added some nice games. Cleveland defense only ended up with 16 points after obliterating a bad Chicago offense. I would have expected that to be way more, to be honest. Chris had big games from his running backs too. He had Kamara. James Robinson finally got on Urban Meyer's good side. Melvin Gordon continues to make good use of a soft schedule and got a good game by Devontae Adams, but it wasn't enough. Charlie won 114-108 as the top scoring teams seemed to face each other in this week. Jeremy played Walker. Jeremy beat Walker, and I'm considering leaving it at that, but it's mildly interesting how Jeremy was able to do it because he was able to do it with like the second highest score or second lowest score of the week. Walker managed just 59.04 points with Aaron Rodgers being about a third of that, and the rest of his team drastically underperformed. Jeremy did marginally better with the 80.14 points in the matchup dud of the week. Tyler Lockett got an injury, which hurt, but Jeremy's depth was able to push his team forward. Had good weeks from Justin Jefferson, Godwin, Mark Andrews, and that was just enough. Me and Colin, this is an old top division class, started off innocently enough until my team exploded with nice results from my running backs. Yes, that's what I said. Nice results from my running backs, which then added to my wide receivers with Kupp leading the way in the beginning of his season rampage of 21 points. Colin underperformed, getting nice games from Stafford against the injured Bucs secondary. He got Justin Tucker in his record-setting 66-yard field goal. Finally got a really nice game from Najee Harris, but it did take him 14 receptions to do so. Unfortunately, his team let him down. Most of the rest of his team failed to even reach 7 points. I won 130 to Colin's 89.
Good stuff.
Unless
your time.
And that drops me to 0-3 on the year. Having 2 really good weeks, 1 bad week. I'm not happy about it. These points against need to stop. Briar, if you could do that for me in week 4 here, that'd be great.
So Jeremy or Ty, I was looking at the projected, like what Yahoo's projecting right now, and you're projected the most points against by a wide margin, like by a lot. Like it's not even close to anybody else, but it does have you going 9-6 or so. So it thinks that you can overcome it. It's going to be a rough road, bud.
Yeah. Thanks for the vote of confidence here. Hey, you're going to get your ass shit on all year, but you'll be all right.
Well, Yahoo thinks it'll be all right.
Thanks, Yahoo. All right. Let's jump into the things we learned in week 3 here. Andy, you want to soapbox this real quick, or are you going to knock this out quickly?
I'm not going to soapbox too much because our viewership is down and people are blaming me. But the thing I learned in week 3 is one of the things that I like to look for as kind of a tell in just organizational strategy of these NFL teams is where their money went. The guys who got big contracts aren't going to get benched. Guys who got big contracts are going to have to get touches, get looks, get whatever, because management, coaching people want to justify the money that they spent, right? Well, that's not been true this year. You look at Kenyon Drake and all the money that the Raiders paid him. Josh Jacobs has been out the last 2 weeks, and Drake has not been productive. He's not been getting a ton of carries. He got taken out for who was it, Peyton Barber, because Gruden said he missed a blocking assignment. So that's part of it. But even last week, he didn't have hardly any volume with Jacobs out. Robbie Anderson, who I was really big on, I bought into the Sam Darnold connection. I bought into the fact that they paid him in the offseason because they wanted him to be a part of their team, and he's not getting any looks. He's just back to being the hope you catch a deep ball that he was when he was on the Jets. And I don't understand it. The Patriots tight ends are each averaging like 3 catches a game and 30 yards each. Like neither of them are doing anything. Marlon Mack, I thought was going to be a part of the Colts backfield, not a big one, but I thought that he was going to get some touches. I thought that they were going to see what he could do. And now they're agreeing to mutually seek out a trade, but even with his torn Achilles, they gave him some money to bring him back in the offseason. And then they're like, oh, but we didn't actually want you. So I feel like this is new. I feel like follow the money has been a relatively reliable point of analysis for me in the past. But it's not working this year.
No. Boy, what do you got?
So mine sounds basic on the surface, and it is that offensive lines matter. You don't draft offensive lines, but you draft the players that rely on those offensive lines. And Andy pointed out when I brought this up that this is fantasy 101, and we were always bringing it up even in the preseason. We were talking about Najee's bad offensive line. A knock against Monty was his offensive line / Nagy. But I feel like offensive lines have been even more important at the start of this season. And I'm sure that we'll see a lot of these players who are fantasy duds right now, largely because of the offensive line play, will end up getting their points some way, shape, or form. But early in the season, it's really hurt some people. James Robinson, he doesn't have a good offensive line. His rookie's throwing interceptions pretty much every other pass. But the offensive line is a huge part of all of that. And he finally had a good game this week. But the previous 2, they just couldn't get anything going. Allen Robinson, When you look at him, he's been a consistent, steady Eddie, regardless of how bad the offensive line has been for the Bears, regardless of what Nagy's been doing, regardless of who he's got at quarterback. And this year, it's just gone to crap. It's terrible for him. Joe Mixon had a great week 1. Bad offensive line play has really hurt him in the last 2 weeks. Najee Harris finally had a good game, but before that, he was getting the volume that we all thought. We were all hoping, Colin especially, that he was going to, his talent and his volume would overcome a bad offensive line. But that offensive line is like bad. That's like, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's not playing well either, but that's also because of the offensive line play. There's just so many like stories of bad offensive lines that are causing these fantasy duds. And it could be is because there's a bunch of like really good ones and a bunch of okay ones. And then there's a bunch of bad ones this year. And maybe there's fewer bad ones normal years. I'm not sure, but it feels like a lot of the players that you see as duds right now, you can attribute to their offensive lines more so than in a normal year. So if you were paying attention to it early in the season, you might have drafted better, but for some of you, it's rough.
Yeah. So I'm going to go more or less strictly NFL, and Rodgers is still good. The Packers week 1 was just a bad week. They had a great week 2. Rodgers has 37 seconds left, comes down, beats the Niners. I'm not happy about it. It seemed to be my week. Betting didn't go my way. Fantasy didn't go my way. The Niners lost with 37 seconds left. It's fine. I'm fine. It's going to be okay. But you can't give Rodgers any time left when it's a close game. So
come back from the ledge, Ty. Come back from the ledge.
Oh boy. All right. Well, with that, let's have Andy jump into the first 3 week stats and playoff odds, all based on record in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'll try not to drone on too much, just reading some of this stuff off, but I dug into our 10-year league history. I was curious, just looking at some of the teams and doing my power rankings today. I still think that Ty has a really good chance of being the wild card. He's probably not catching Paul between Paul's team and the fact that he's 3 games behind him already, but Ty's team is really good. And I was curious how often in the past 10 years of this league has a team started 0-3 and made the playoffs, and figured I'd just kind of roll from there. So historically in our league, starting 0-3, you would have a 14% chance of making the playoffs. Walker and I both have done it. We are the only 2 out of 14 teams to start 0-3 that have been able to make the playoffs. Fun stat, this year is the first year that Ty has ever started 0-3.
Andy, that's not a fun stat.
It's fun for some people to know.
Right.
Boyer, Paul, and Robbie have never started 0-3. Good work, fellas. In now 11 years. So good on you. I did it once and I made the playoffs anyways. If you start the year 1-2, you have a 27% chance of making the playoffs. 10 out of 47 teams that started 1-2 made the playoffs. Boyer, Walker, and I have all made the playoffs twice from a 1-2 start. So that's doable. Anybody who's feeling not great about their 1-2 team, definitely possible. Fryer, Ty, and Walker lead the league, having started with a 1-2 record 6 times, with the note that Fryer and Walker now have 7, counting this year. So most of these numbers were pulled just on the last 10 years.
I didn't go 1-2 this year. You guys.
Yeah, way to show them, Ty. You show them. Chris has only started 1-2 once, and Robbie has only started 1-2 twice, which is better than everybody else in the league. I think everybody else had 3 or 4. So good job to those guys. Moving up to a 2-1 start, you have a 43% chance of making the playoffs. 19 out of 44 teams to start 2-1 have made the playoffs. Colin, Paul, and I have all made the playoffs 3 times after starting 2-1. Robbie has the most 2-1 starts to the season in the league. 8 of his 11 years, counting this year, he started 2-1, but he's only made the playoffs twice from that start. So interesting fact there. Fryer and Walker have only started 2-1 once out of the 11 years now. So do better, guys. And finally, starting 3-0. Any guesses, guys, or did you look at the notes?
I'm looking at them right now, so I'm not going to.
I looked at them.
All right. Well, comment below how often you think you make the playoffs starting 3-0 in a 12-team league with 4 teams making playoffs. The answer is 60% of the time. 9 out of 15 teams to start 3-0 have made the playoffs. Those who have started 3-0 and missed the playoffs, there's 6 names here. I've done it. Boyer's done it. Colin's done it. Fryer's done it. Ty's done it. And Cody did it back in 2015. So little who's who of people who started hot and fell off hard. Jeremy and Paul are not on this list. Maybe they will be. We'll have to see. Of the 5 times that Chris has gone to the playoffs, 4 of those times he started the season 3-0.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty significant. This is the first season that Jeremy and Paul have ever started 3-0. They were the only 2 teams left in the league not to have done it, and now they have. So good work, fellers. And lastly, Chris leads the league with 4 seasons starting 3-0. Boyer and I both have 2, and everybody else has 1 now. So, woohoo! Yay, stats. That didn't take near as long as it could have.
Fair enough. Andy, good job.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me talk at you.
All right. So let's jump into week 4 matchups, going through lineup decisions. Boyer, you want to start in with Andy and Jeremy?
Yeah. So Ty mentioned that we're starting with lineup decisions. We're not going to roll down these as much as we have in the last couple episodes. You guys have the screenshots, hopefully, if the editor did his job right, where you can see the teams, or you can go look at your Yahoo Fantasy account and look at the teams. So looking at the decisions, Jeremy has a couple decisions to make, but they all are going to depend on injuries. So he has Lockett. Lockett had a scary looking knee injury, was able to avoid, it looks like, anything major, but he may or may not be out going forward. So the question is, if Lockett is out or is not out, if he's playing, which of Jeremy's 4 wide receivers are we playing this week, boys?
I want to get Robinson in the lineup. I feel like, I know that you talked about the offensive line. He's only had 2 catches in the last 2 weeks. He's only got 86 yards on the season. Robinson's been bad, and Jeremy rightly has left him on his bench because he's got better guys. But at the same time, I feel like the Lions is a get-right game for him, for Fields, for the Bears offense. I would really like to see that get going. So I'd like to get Robinson in there if Lockett's not healthy. That said, I think Lockett's going to play this week. I think he's doing okay.
If Lockett is healthy, no tag or anything, are you playing Robinson or are you playing Lockett?
At this point, if Lockett's good to go, I'm keeping him in the lineup, and I want to see it from Robinson for a week because he's been bad enough for 3 straight games. The Bears offense as a whole has been bad for 3 straight weeks, and after that turd they dropped last week, I need to see it before I put him in the lineup. But I do think Robinson has a shot at a good game this week. It's a fine matchup, and hopefully the Bears get their head out of their ass and do something, even if they don't win the game, at least show that they know what direction to run on the field.
How to get more than 47 yards? I'm confused by what's happening there.
We don't ask for a whole lot, Bears fans. More than 47 yards is one of the things that we consistently do ask for out of our team, though.
Preferably more yards than Justin Tucker can kick in a field goal.
God, yeah.
Andy, if Lockett is questionable and he's never ruled out, what are your thoughts?
You got to play Robinson because Robinson's got the noon game. So Lockett's got the 3:00 game. You can't really wait and hope for news there. Unless you're wanting to roll the dice with Henderson at the same time, but he's also hurt and questionable. You could move things around to get that decision into the flex, but you're kind of playing with fire at that point, and you'd be stuck starting somebody like Kenyon Drake if that doesn't fall the right way. So I think that if Lockett is questionable and reports are wishy-washy, I mean, we all know there's questionable he was resting this week and he's good to go, and there's questionable we don't know if he's going to play. What depending on what it sounds like on Sunday, if I feel like he's going to play, I'll roll with him. If I don't, or if I'm not confident in that, then you got to roll with Robinson to lock in some sort of production.
Ty, thoughts?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to start Robinson, they do have Detroit, which is a softer matchup than they've had. As much as I don't like Lockett, I think you have to go that way if he is playing, just because I don't trust the Bears at all at this point. And it's not because I would enjoy playing Lockett over Robinson. It's that the Bears are just awful. So you have to play the guy that's put up points this year.
So I'm going to put in Robinson tentatively. I'm going to assume that Lockett's going to go into this with maybe not an official knee injury, but that it could hamper him in some way. And I think Robinson's good for 36 yards and a touchdown. It seems like a very Robinson game to have for this spot. But I think I'm tentatively putting him in. If the reports after like Friday practice are glowing for Lockett, no issues, I think you have to see if Robinson can't produce. But if Lockett has any indication that he is going to be playing injured, even if he's playing injured, then I'm going to put in Robinson because I agree with Andy that this is a get right game. So he's got another decision here with running back. Henderson is most likely out with a rib injury. Who are we playing at running back if Henderson is out? Obviously, Henderson's the guy if he's in, but if he's out, what are we doing?
Yeah, he's got a couple of bad matchups. Latavius Murray is not even the number one guy on his team, and he's got a tough matchup with Denver. Mark Ingram against Buffalo, whose defense looks really good. And Mark Ingram hasn't done squat since week 1. And then you've got good old Kenyon Drake, who has maxed out at 8 carries for 24 yards in the rushing department this year. So I got a feeling Jeremy's going to try to make a move to settle this up, because I'm with you, Boyer. I think that they're going to give Henderson another week, especially with how their team's been going. They can afford to be careful with him. They don't need to rush him back. I talked to Jeremy earlier today about Sony Michel, because I think that he's concerned about this. He's trying to solve the issue before it's an issue. He told me he thinks that Henderson's coming back this week. I don't know if that was just because he's trying to drive a bargain when he's talking to me, but I don't buy that. We'll see when it gets closer, but I think he could be in trouble at that RB2 this week. So if it's my team, good God, I think I got to play Drake, and I'm not happy about that.
Ty?
Yeah. I think I'm playing, as much as I hate to say it, and the whole Baltimore run game wasn't good last week. But I think I'm going back to Baltimore's run game is normally fairly solid. Although he's splitting time, I think I've got to go with Murray. I don't like this situation whatsoever. Because even if Henderson does come back, I think at minimum he splits time with Sony this week. So, I mean, I'd still play him over this other crap that he's got. But I think Latavius Murray is the next best option at this point, even against Denver, because I think Baltimore has to reestablish that run game because they can't throw the ball to save their lives. So.
Man, if Tyrod Taylor was playing, I think Mark Ingram would be an easy option here because the Texans showed with him at quarterback they could move the ball and Ingram could get a touchdown. And at this point, that's what you're kind of hoping for.
Jaguars, does that really count?
Sure it does. I mean, he's getting the goal line looks, and that's what you're looking for as far as that goes. I think I'm going with Kenyon Drake. I'm going pure matchup on this point. Chargers have a bad running defense so far. You got to hope that Kenyon Drake gets some looks somewhere in the red zone. At this point, I think he's hoping for a touchdown and his running back 2 spot, and that's it. With Latavius Murray, there's a 1 in 3 chance. Well, I guess if you could count Lamar Jackson, it's a 1 in 8 chance of getting a touchdown in the red zone. So I don't really trust that at all. I would trust Kenyon Drake slightly more, but that's only because of the matchup. So this is rough for Jeremy. He needs to add some depth.
Yes, for sure.
Real quick, we'll go to Andy. We're going to play our normal game of Hunt versus Javonte. Who you got? Ty, I'll start with you.
I hate to say it because Hunt's so freaking good all of a sudden. I mean, not all of a sudden because he has been good, but he outshined Chubb by a lot last week, and you never know what week that's going to happen. I think Minnesota's line's probably better than their secondary, which could help Hunt on some of the out routes, some of the passing work. But after Baltimore's performance last week, I think I'm going to start Williams, just because I think that might be the better option at this point. Minnesota's not an awful defense, but they give up points. Chubb and Hunt, I just don't trust who's going to get it. Javonte and Melvin Gordon, I don't necessarily trust who's going to get it there either, but I think Javonte is the better play this week. Probably not a popular opinion.
Andy, what are you doing?
Oh, this one's very easy for me. Javante's riding the bench. He fumbled at the end of the game, lost that fumble. The game script didn't matter. They were up by 20-some points. But when your rookie puts the ball on the ground at the end of the game, that's going to hurt you the next week. So I fully expect him to see less carries, be in the doghouse a little bit. Hunt's in my lineup this week. I mean, Javonte could do well. Baltimore's been giving up running touchdowns pretty consistently so far this year. Javonte and Melvin Gordon have been splitting the goal line work. Javonte actually edging him out last week for how many red zone touches he had. Almost had a second touchdown at one point, but I think that with the fumble, he's going to be in the doghouse a little bit, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb should do what they do against the Vikings defense, and I'm happy to just lock in whatever they do. If it all goes one way or the other, I'm going to get it either way.
Yeah, so looking at this myself, I did not know Javonte fumbled at the end of the game. I would expect him to be in the doghouse for maybe a quarter, but they rely on that two-headed running attack right now themselves. That being said, it's the worst of the two, and this is their first actual team that they have to play. They've been playing like high school teams pretty much all year. So for that reason, I would struggle putting Javonte in. I want to know what his usage is in a really competitive game. I'd want to know if he could be efficient against a team who could play some sort of defense. And I think Chubb is going to have a game. I think that this game is going to script better for him. I think that Hunt came in last week They clearly wanted to use him against the Bears defense. They had some sort of game plan where they thought that Hunt was going to be the guy to go with. I don't think that's going to be the case, but he'll still get his points. And in this game, because Jeremy is struggling at RB2, I agree with you, Andy. I just take the points that Hunt gives you, and just rely on the rest of your team to beat out Jeremy, because without Henderson, his team looks weaker, and that gives you the advantage.
Real quick, while we're all together, 4 players in the NFL have 250 rushing yards or more. Anybody care to try to name them?
Try that again.
There's 4 players in the NFL that have 250 rushing yards plus.
Chubb is one.
So who are they? Number 1's pretty obvious. He's got 350. I'll give you a hint. He gets 30 plus carries per game.
Derrick Henry.
It's Derrick Henry.
Nailed it.
He's got 80 attempts through 3 games, which is absurd, and 353 rushing yards. He's number 1.
Yeah, week 2 was huge for him. He had like 40 carries that week. I'm going to go with Chubb, Henry.
Mixon. Over 250? What did you say?
Over
Mixon,
250.
probably. Mixon had 130 yards the first week and had, 90 last week.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
he's
one.
gonna be, whatever game 2 was, he's got to be over 250.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Melvin Gordon, just because we're talking about the Broncos team.
Mixon's number 2 with 286. Chubb is number 3 with 262. So Melvin Gordon at number 4. Ty, you have a guess at number 4?
Start throw.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Melvin Gordon's got 193. The only other players besides this mystery fourth person over 250 that have over 200 are David Montgomery, Chris Carson, and Christian McCaffrey with 203, 202, and 201. But number 4 on the list with 251 rushing yards, Lamar Jackson.
Okay, well, that's just cheating. We didn't know that you were talking about.
I said players.
Yeah,
I
right.
said players.
You did. That seems cheap, though. It seems like a cheap shot.
All right, we can move on.
So who are we taking this week in the matchup?
I'll go first. Jeremy's got injury issues. Andy doesn't. I'm going Andy.
I like Andy's matchups down the board. He's got Atlanta. He's got, Kelsey against Philadelphia should be good. Andy's going to win this matchup.
I've got me too, and I agree with what you guys said. Matchups fall in my favor. I think Herbert and Williams combo on Monday night against the Raiders is going to be another big hit like it was last week. Whereas Jeremy's looking at Kyler against the Rams' tough defense. And then, he's got Murray and Andrews going up against Denver, which is not great. Godwin could be sneaky good this week. I'll talk about it more when we get to Fryer's team, but the revenge game for Tom Brady in Foxborough is going to be fun to watch.
Must see TV right there.
All right, so Andy's taking that one. Let's move on to Chris versus Boyer. So looking at Chris's team, we have an A.J. Brown injury, which I'm not 100% sure how that's going to linger or he's considered week to week now, so I don't know. He does have Chase and Adams to cover his wide receiver spots for the time being, though. His only question would be is are you sitting Melvin Gordon for Corey Davis? He doesn't really have any bench options. Is there anything you guys can see on his lineup that you would do. Devin Singletary is probably not an option at this point. I mean, they do play Houston, so I mean, both running backs could get plenty of work. Tony Jones Jr. not considered an option at this point. So what are your thoughts on his lineup? Is there anything you'd change? Pretty much Melvin Gordon, or I guess maybe James Robinson you could sit, but after last week, I'm not sitting James Robinson.
Go ahead, Boyer.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm making any changes. I'll take Melvin Gordon. The Broncos want to give him the ball. It's very clear that he's in a timeshare, but they want to run the ball. Baltimore struggled a little bit against the run. I do believe in their defensive front overall. I think it'll be a tougher game for Melvin Gordon. He hasn't been terribly efficient with his carries, minus the 70-yard touchdown or whatever that he's gotten before. So I'm going to go with Melvin Gordon still. I think that he'll get the carries. I think he'll probably get a touchdown in there. Corey Davis, I'm not excited about at all on a bad Jets team. There's really no one else on his team. Singletary against Houston doesn't excite me at all. That being said, if A.J. Brown were to play, which I think with a hamstring strain, not a pull, but a strain, generally is about 2 weeks minimum. So I don't expect him to play, but if he does, that'll move. Jamar Chase would be his obvious flex. Melvin Gordon could then move to the bench, and A.J. Brown could play. But I don't expect that to happen. I'll keep Melvin Gordon in at flex.
Yeah, I agree. I think the A.J. Brown injury phrasing of week to week instead of day to day obviously does not have me feeling good about his status for this week. So I'm not expecting him to play. I like Melvin Gordon this week for the same reasons that I benched Javonte. That said, I do want to talk about the options that Chris has on his bench just real quick. Singletary last week in a game that they won by 23 had 11 carries for 26 yards. So I'm not tempted at all to play him because they're playing the Texans and are going to be up and running or any of that baloney. So I'm keeping Singletary on the bench, if not on the waiver wire. But Corey Davis has been averaging over 7 targets a week, and he's going up against a really, really bad Tennessee secondary. If Chris felt like he needed to swing for the fences, that is a play that I would be willing to make. Boyer's team last week just went off. I don't know if it's going to this week or not. But I think that I would be leaving Melvin Gordon in there, but I do like the Corey Davis matchup quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm leaving Melvin Gordon. I'm gonna run with that and just hope that he gets enough work. But I'm not big on Corey Davis this week. Zach Wilson has looked pretty bad over the last couple weeks. And at some point, I mean, they played New England and he wasn't great, and that defense is mediocre. They did have Denver last week, and that defense is pretty solid. They did torch Carolina week 1. So who knows? But I'm not taking the risk on Corey Davis. Going over to Boyer's side, DJ Moore and Kupp probably not being moved out of his wide receivers. Waller is stuck in his tight end spot. So we got Cousins or Tannehill as our quarterback decision. Cousins has Cleveland. Tannehill has the Jets. Andy, what are you doing with those two?
I'm sticking with Cousins. Cousins has been hot. I think that the Cleveland game is going to be, Cleveland's pass rush is legit, as Bears fans know all too well. But Cleveland's offense puts up points, which means that Minnesota is going to need to be throwing the ball to keep up with them. And they've been throwing the ball well. They look for Thielen in the red zone, and that's obviously great news for fantasy players. So I'm sticking with Cousins until something changes. What you hate to see in a game against the Jets or Jaguars or the Giants is Tannehill come out, have a good, even great first half where he puts up 15 points, and then they coast the rest of the game because they're beating a bad team by so much that they take their foot off the gas, they bring the backups in, whatever it is, and then he finishes with 16, 17 points because he didn't have to do anything in the second half. I want my quarterbacks preferably to be in a competitive game, and that's Kirk Cousins.
Yep, I would agree. I think Derrick Henry is going to have a stellar first half against the Jets, and then after that, they can kind of coast it out. I don't even know that Tannehill is going to have to throw that much. So I'm sticking with Cousins because of game script. So I would agree with you 100%. Boyer, anything you want to add on that one?
I mean, Tannehill doesn't throw it all that much to begin with, even less than Cousins, and the matchup doesn't promote him throwing a ton. I'm going to go with Cousins. I don't think that that's going to be necessarily a shootout, but it'll be competitive enough that Cousins' attempts will be meaningful versus Tannehill's, which may just be even just to move the change. So I'm going to probably stick with Cousins here. I don't really see a reason to go off of a hot hand at this point.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to a quick running back 2 decision.
Always running back 2 decisions.
I mean, you could call it a running back 1 decision, but after last week, I imagine you're starting Edwards-Helaire, and he's your only notable running back. So we'll leave him there. So RB2, he's got Nyheim Hines. He's still holding Ronald Jones. He's got Michael Carter, and he's got Jamal Williams. Man, your running back room is nice. I wish I had your running back room.
I mean, we could trade. I'm
The
happy to
decisions
trade.
aren't
Ty.
any easier when they're good or when they're bad.
I'm happy to trade, Ty.
I'm sure you are. So at this point, oh, man, I'm not trusting the touchdown that Nyheim Hines got last week. I'm putting Jamal Williams in. I think at this point he has been the most steady guy out of your RB2 situation, and the Lions have to give the ball to somebody, and they've given them to Swift and Williams plenty in both game or all 3 games so far. I'm putting him in there as the RB2 at this point. Andy, what do you got on just the RB2 right now, and then we'll move to that flex?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I mean, I'm not excited about any of it. I think Boyer wants to make sure that he's keeping up with Chris. I don't know that I buy into Nyheim Hines as a real boom potential type player, but I don't know that Williams is either. I lean towards Williams. I got nothing. I have no good advice other than I'm not happy about it, and I lean towards Williams.
Boyer, what are your thoughts at this point for that RB2 spot?
Yeah, so I'm not happy about it either. I want to point that out to everybody.
I don't think we think that you are.
Anybody that's in the RB2 buying mode, just get in line. Boyer's looking first. That's what we're.
You want Sony Michel? He's probably playing this week.
To be honest, I would consider that right now. But that being said, we'll go to Hines. Hines has actually gotten a lot of volume in 2 out of the 3 weeks so far. And the week 2 was Marlon Mack actually stole some of his work. I don't expect that to happen. Marlon Mack was a healthy scratch in week 3. Nyheim Hines was involved. He's efficient. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. I expect that to continue. Marlon Mack will probably be another healthy scratch as he's looking for a trade. And I think that the Colts aren't as good as we thought they were going to be. They aren't who we thought they were. So in this case, I think Hines will continue to get passing work as the Colts are down. And I like that. I don't think JTT suddenly all of a sudden, blows the backfield up and is, vintage second half last year. So I like Hines. Williams has the Bears, and the Bears have a good run defense. We could say what we want to about their offense. Their defense is still good. It's stout against the run. I don't think that's going to change. So I'm probably going to go with Hines because I think he has the higher floor. and the higher ceiling. I like Williams. He gives great post-game clips. Dude's hilarious. But I think in this one against the Bears, I'm not going to trust that. I'm going to trust Hines against Miami.
All right. So then what do you do? Are you keeping Cooks in your flex, or are you
100%.
moving Williams in?
He's wide receiver
I don't
7
think
right
this
now.
is a question. Cooks
Nope.
is totally in my lineup at this point.
Yeah, he's wide receiver 7 right now, which I don't expect to continue, but
I
he's
do.
clearly getting all of the volume in Houston, which may be a small amount of attempts, but he's getting all of it. So I'm gonna keep him in there until he stops getting all of it or gets injured.
Yeah, he's averaging 11 targets, 8 catches, and 107 yards a week through 3 weeks. He's the only game in town, and that's enough.
And they're going to have to throw all game long because they don't have anything
Right.
else.
I mean, it could just be a garbage time fourth quarter where he gets all of his production, but I'm fine with that. I don't care how he gets it. He'll get close to 100 yards almost every game. A bonus touchdown would be nice.
Yep. No, I wasn't super concerned about that, but I figured I have to ask just in case. So Cooks will be your flex. Fair enough. What do you guys got for the winner here? I'm taking Chris.
I got Chris.
I think that Cooper Kupp against Arizona could still have a good game, but he's not going to put up these ridiculous numbers he has been putting up. He's got to come back down to earth a little bit. And I think Arizona is going to be smart enough to cover that, especially if Henderson's going to be out. They're going to key on Kupp, which is going to cause a little bit of problem for Boyer's lineup. And I think Adams against Pitt could be a good game for Chris. Jamar Chase against Jacksonville could be a great game for Chris. Kamara's got the Giants, another good matchup. I just think there's enough good matchups on Chris's side that he takes the win on this one.
Completely agree. I think Hurts against the Kansas City defense, which has been bad this year, is primed for a huge game. And then Devontae Adams against the Pittsburgh defense that just let Jamar Chase burn him twice is going to be should be pretty fun to watch. So I think Chris has better matchups. Boyer's got massive issues at RB2 that I don't think that Boyer's going to be close in this one. Sorry, bud.
The wheels are going to fall off of my team eventually. I know that. I understand that. But I'm going to go with my team here. I think Cousins can match Hurts. I think DJ Moore against Dallas is a great matchup. He hasn't gotten a touchdown yet. I think he gets 120 and a touchdown, especially if CMC doesn't play. I think they'll heavily use DJ Moore. Kupp against Arizona, I would normally say he's not going to do what he's been doing, but Arizona's the matchup to do that. I think it'll be a shootout, and there's no way Kupp isn't involved in a shootout with the way they've been using him. Edwards-Helaire, I hope that they keep using him the way that they did last week. I think they need to, because turnovers have kind of been an issue for KC. Keeping on the ground can help. I'm gonna call myself to pull this one out too. I think that's definitely unpopular. But Kamara against the Giants have a decent defense. Jamar Chase can't score a touchdown every week. Eventually, he won't score a touchdown. I don't know if Jacksonville's the game that he doesn't.
Is that the same? Is that the same for Kupp then? I'm just confused on how this works.
Jamar Chase is a rookie who's getting like 5 targets a game. Like Tyler Boyd out targeted Chase last week and the previous week before that. Kupp is leading the team in targets by a lot, and he has Matthew Stafford throwing to him. I'm going to pick Kupp over Chase every week, every chance.
Hold on. Where are Chase's targets?
Down the field.
Downfield. But you guys love Lockett. And Lockett is a down the field, small volume guy. But all of a sudden, you're going to hate on Chase. Explain this one to me.
I love Lockett as a boom bust player. I actually agree with you that he's a boom bust player. And that's why I think that Chase may or may not get a touchdown this week. That's what he's dependent on, a touchdown, a long touchdown. And if he doesn't get it, he'll have 4 targets for 35 yards. And maybe I'm hopeful that that's what happens. It probably doesn't against Jacksonville. But if I'm Jacksonville, that's what I'm focusing on. I'm trying to keep everything in front of me, make sure they don't blow off the top, and make sure Chase doesn't beat me on that, and try and keep things close for my rookie quarterback. That makes the most sense to me. And so the matchup is fine, but Chase is a long touchdown dependent type player. And I don't think that he's going to do it every week, let alone 4 weeks in a row. I think Kupp is more likely against Arizona in a shootout to continue doing what he's doing.
Okay. I just had to throw it out there because I get a lot of shit for disliking Lockett with his low volume, high target.
I like Lockett. Just to make sure you know. I like Lockett as a part of a team who's created specifically to have some boom bust potential somewhere. I don't like Lockett on a week-to-week basis necessarily, so I'm with you on that.
Okay. Andy loves Lockett. It's fine. We're moving on.
Lockett's good.
Lockett. Moving on. All right. I feel like I should switch my vote to Boyer just because he picked himself and his luck is.
That's there. How he beats us in the pick'em is because his team's bad, he wins anyways, and he's the only one that picks himself.
All right. Let's move on. Andy, take me versus Fryer here.
Yeah. So Ty's matchup decision. I mean, you're starting CD and Tyreek, and you're starting Gibson and Barkley, and you're probably starting Swift. So does anybody want to make an argument for Higgins or Galladay, or even Pittman, who's been seeing a ton of targets lately, 12 targets in the last 2 games for Pittman? Does anybody want to make an argument to play one of them over Swift against the Bears? I don't think Ty has a matchup decision here. So what I'm going to pivot to is Ty needs to drop Jonnu Smith and go pick up Mike Gesicki. But I bet you all the money in my wallet right now that Ty has a waiver claim in right now for one of 2 guys. Either he's chasing Dalton Schultz's 2 touchdowns, or he's got a hard on for Pat Freiermuth because he got a touchdown this week. There's that sneaky smile. I knew he's dropping Jonnu because Jonnu's done nothing.
Luckily, these waivers go through tomorrow morning, and they won't see this till tomorrow afternoon.
But I'm going to be right anyways.
So that means Andy hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So if Ty was good at this game with his stacked ass team, he would go get Mike Gesicki and hope for 5 points a week instead of 0 out of his tight end and be happy with that. But instead, he's going to go pick up a fucking rookie who only caught a touchdown because their entire receiving core was decimated. I think Freiermuth had 2 catches and 20 yards, but he caught a touchdown because Ty likes to swing for the fences and he likes to jerk off on rookies. So that's what Ty should do. His matchup decision is who's he playing at tight end, and I think he's making a mistake. You should go add Mike Gesicki.
I'm waiting for waivers to clear now. This is going to be great.
Can I throw out a?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Okay. To be honest, my only other roster decision I would consider actually would be if T. Higgins is healthy against Jacksonville, possibly playing him over CeeDee Lamb against Carolina. Carolina's defense has been a lot better than expected this year. But my problem is I do not think Higgins is going to be healthy enough to play. And against Jacksonville, I think Cincinnati's going to win, and I don't think they have to push Higgins back. But that would be my roster decision in my head right now is Higgins against a fairly easy Jacksonville team instead of Lamb against a tough Carolina defense.
Yeah, I think for your sake, you're not going to have to make that decision because Higgins didn't practice today. They play Thursday night. I'll be very surprised if he goes.
No.
So
I'm not. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think I'm playing Lamb straight up because I think Higgins' injury is going to linger another week. But that's the only argument I would make for making a change in my lineup right now, other than maybe getting rid of this Jay Smith guy that I've never heard of.
Fair enough. Then let's move to Fryer.
I want to give my 2 cents.
Okay.
What are you doing? Okay.
Go ahead.
Real quick.
I'm trying to keep it moving. We're trying to be faster this week.
Yeah, well, Lamb, you play your studs regardless of who's healthy or not. I think I would play Lamb. With that being said, I think that Ty also needs to look at his defense. Arizona against the Rams, that's a tough ask. I think he's probably looking at a couple waiver wire pickups, boys, to figure out what he's doing. So I agree with Andy is that he should be picking up Gesicki, and he should be spending a decent amount of fab on Gesicki to do it. Apparently he's not doing it. But I think that should be the consensus pick for him because the rest of his team is good. But defensive wise, Arizona needs to go. That's going to be a rough defensive game against the Rams.
And Arizona then has San Fran after that and Cleveland after that.
Yeah, that might be a super drop.
It might be on my radar. All right, let's go to Friar's side.
All right, let's go to Friar's side. Oh, I started looking at what I was trying to guess what defense you were going to pick up. So I know Friar's starting Sermon right now. I don't know how I feel about that, but I think Tyson Williams against the Broncos defense. The Broncos defense has been very stout so far. And talk all you want about the matchups that they've had. I mean, they shut down Saquon, they shut down James Robinson. Like, they haven't been complete slouches at running back. So I don't know that Tyson Williams is the guy that I want to start against the Broncos and say he's going to be the one that breaks through. Connor against the Rams, also not really an option this week, although you should have played Connor last week. Friar, you would have won. I told you to do that. So that one's on you.
Let's not say Denver shut down Saquon, though, when he was in week 1 on a snap count, not really getting a full workload. Go ahead.
He had 10 carries for 26 yards. That's 2.6 a carry. I acknowledge that he was injured, but he got touches. He did nothing with them. He got shut down.
That's fair.
So
don't rag on my players.
I mean, your players are all hurt. That's on you. So I think me personally, I don't think there's much discussion about his RB2 here, especially with how much Seattle's given up to running backs these last couple of weeks with Derrick Henry 2 weeks ago and then Madison last week. I like that Sermon Seahawks matchup. So what I'm going to pivot to here is, are you starting Chenault against the Bengals or Emmanuel Sanders against the Texans?
I mean, at this point, I'm starting Emmanuel Sanders. It's a high-powered offense. Buffalo is. I mean, they show they won't take their foot off the gas if they don't have to. I mean, they were beaten up on Washington last week and still put up 43 points. I mean, at no point did they take off. If Sanders can get 6 or 8 targets, him and Allen's connection looked really good this last week, and I think you can't not start. As much as I did not like Sanders coming into the season, you can't not start him, I don't think, at this point.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm not super jazzed about starting Sanders in a matchup against the Texans where they're not going to have to do very much to win that game. But Friar's other options don't look great to me either, so I got to leave him in. Boyer, what do you think?
Sanders has damn near, if not 30% target share. I think Diggs is the other wide receiver who also has a damn near 30% target share on that team. It looks like a 2 wide receiver team, kind of what we expected the Titans to be this year with Julio and AJB. So I'm going to go with the volume. They clearly trust in Sanders. He's the veteran who knows what he's doing. He's going to be the guy who's going to, get you your first downs when you need them. Even when they have the lead by 2 touchdowns, to move the chains. They're not going to run the ball. They're going to probably feed Sanders and Diggs. So I'm okay with Sanders here. I think it's a good move. I think Trey Sermon is a good move as long as he plays against Seattle. Seattle's got a bad run defense. So I think Friar's got his team set up where it was. I am a little surprised with Friar. When I looked at his team week 1, I thought that his team was shockingly good, and now with Sanders and Sermon there, I'm like, why did I think that?
Yeah, I feel you there. I do want to correct you real quick because Cole Beasley's the one with the high target share. Cole Beasley's got Yeah, he's got 30 targets, 23 catches. Sanders is sitting on 20 targets, only 11 catches so far this year, but he got the 2 touchdowns last week, which is why he's getting them fantasy points. Okay. Sanders actually has more fantasy points than Diggs or Beasley.
Well, I'm okay with the 20 targets then still, because when you look at who they're going to for the high value stuff, that's where I want my fantasy player to go.
Chenault also has just over 20 targets, and he's getting them from Trevor Lawrence on a bad offense.
Right,
yeah. and he's getting the short things.
Right, like he's getting nothing. That's the problem. Yeah,
and you can't play. I mean,
the value of his targets are so small in comparison to where Sanders is at. Similar to your Chase argument, where Chase might not be getting the targets, but yes, he is getting the downfield stuff. Sanders is getting trust in the red zone.
The only other thing you could consider if they weren't playing the Rams would put James Conner in for upside with a touchdown.
Yeah.
But that would be moving Claypool up, moving Sanders out probably, and then throwing Connors in. But against the Rams, you're not banking on that.
It's a bad matchup.
In a different week, I think that's totally up for consideration, like last week. But this week, I'm leaving it as it is.
Yep. All right.
Who you guys got in this one?
Boyer, what do you got?
I'm going with Fryer. I think that if you don't think that Brady is throwing for 8 touchdowns and 3 of them to Mike Evans on that stack, I think that you're a moron, because Brady's going to go into the Patriots and he will step on the gas and never let up. I'm going with Fryer simply because I'm sorry, Ty. Like, this is so bad. It's just a bad week for you to face him, because Brady and Evans are going to go off and it's going to be ugly. He might get 80 points between the 2 of those guys.
All right. Go ahead.
I agree with all of that. Brady and Evans this week, for sure, they're going to light the world on fire. And then add in Trey Sermon against the Seahawks defense that hasn't been able to stop the run. I really like what Fryer's team's set up to do. I think that his team's going to go off. I'm looking for over 130 points out of his team this week. So, Ty, you're going to keep that streak alive, I think.
Ty could score 120 points this week and lose. I strongly believe that.
Yeah, we're all going to have to listen to him.
This points against thing's killing me right now, and I'm not happy about it.
Who you got winning this one?
I'm taking myself in this one. Just like last week, I need this one. I think my running backs could do it, though. I think Gibson, Saquon being healthy, and DeAndre Swift, if they can all put up decent numbers, it'll come down to this Prescott-Lamb combo against Carolina is I think what it's going to come down to for me. If Brady and Evans light it up, that's fine, as long as Prescott and Lamb can look better than they did last week.
Yeah, Ty, for the record, I think you have a better team up and down by far, especially if you were to add Gesicki as your tight end. But that being said, I think you're just facing Fryer in a bad week where, I mean, if you don't think Brady's throwing 120 times this game, like, you don't know football. So that he's not going to trust Fournette. He's not going to trust Ronald Jones. He's going to throw the ball every play.
I wonder what it's like to play against a team in a bad week where they just really score a lot of points against you.
It would be rough. I don't know. We'll just see how this week plays out, All right.
One other quick thing. I do think that Saquon against the Saints is going to be kind of a dud this week. Saints.
Well, it's going to be a tougher matchup, but Saquon is going to be the only weapon they have if half of their wide receivers are injured.
True.
That's fair.
He's going to have to be used like Kamara is used with New Orleans. I mean, they have to give him the ball, have to force feed him, have to hope and pray that he does something if they want to stay in a game.
Doesn't mean he can't suck.
I didn't say he couldn't suck. All right, leave me alone.
Sorry, bud.
All right, let's move on to a little. Pow! What you drinking? Andy, disappoint me a little bit more.
Still healthy, still water. Still healthy, still water.
Boyer, what do you got?
So I got like a 3-1-2 variety pack, and it came with a dank detector.
Ooh.
I don't know if you're not supposed to hold your beers sideways like that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't have very much left. But it's good. It's an IPA. It's solid. It's no dank meme, Andy, but
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask.
it's still good.
So I'm drinking some Goofy Boots. It's by Penrose. It's a juicy Midwest IPA, 7% alcohol. Freaking delicious.
Yeah.
So if you need a nice beer, Goofy Boots. Go get you some Goofy Boots. And then just so everybody knows, I'm backing it up with a little light this week. All right.
Whoa.
Whoa.
They sent me the check and said, "Hey, we'll pay you more than Coors." I had to switch over.
I
Sorry.
noticed the sign's gone too. So
Well, it's fallen on me multiple weeks in a row. So
yeah, Coors did not seem happy with you these last couple weeks.
No. They had to go. So, all right, let's move on. Boyer, you want to jump into duo versus Robbie?
Yeah. So looking at Robbie's team, the first thing to go through is wide receiver. He's got OBJ, he's got Ruggs, and he's got Patrick. I mean, those are all, I think those are all solid options, which is maybe part of the solution. Ty, what do you think as far as those three guys? I'm actually really interested to see what you think, because you like the younger guys, but OBJ is OBJ. Like, what do you got for me?
I'm going with Ruggs in this matchup.
I knew you would. I 100% knew you would. It was a done deal.
That's getting predictable.
Nailed it. I've not been a fan of OBJ. Cleveland is big on the ground and pound. They give Chubb and Hunt so much work, where Las Vegas is strictly through the air. I mean, yeah, Peyton Barber did fine last week, but Kenyon Drake's nothing. Peyton Barber did well this week, didn't do well in week 2. So I think Las Vegas is going to have to be strictly through the air. Ruggs has got some deep threat ability, has good route running, can definitely play. And Derek Carr throws the ball more than anybody in the league at this point. So I like that over the Denver with Tim Patrick. I mean, I would definitely lean Ruggs or OBJ over Tim Patrick.
I've got OBJ. The Vikings secondary's been horrendous, so I'm going to roll with him. It might not end up being the best play, but it's the one that I think I would want in my lineup this week.
OBJ looked good last week. He looked spry. He looked quick. There's no Landry, so it's People Jones, who's a solid option, but I think OBJ is the number one there. So even though they won't have a ton of volume, I think OBJ will get his. I would go with OBJ. Looking at, he's got more decisions to make. Running back. If Jacobs is healthy, if Jacobs plays, what are we doing at running back? Because he's got Harris, who did a dud last week. He's got Gaskin, who's been not getting the volume that we expected. What are we doing? Running back, flex? What thoughts?
Jacobs has the Monday night game. I really don't think that you can roll those dice unless you're comfortable playing Ruggs in his stead, which isn't the end of the world. Harris against the Bucks, I'm not super excited about either. So with me saying play OBJ, I think I am comfortable rolling with Jacobs / Ruggs in the flex and benching Harris this week, just because the Bucks run defense is a tough matchup. I'm not super jazzed about Gaskin either, but I think he's got to stay in. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, well, so I would agree. Gaskin has to stay in. Indy hasn't looked great. So you play Gaskin, hope for the best. He's not a great option, but it is what it is. I'm not starting Damian Harris against the Bucks defense. I like Ruggs over OBJ. But I'm kind of in the situation where, you throw Ruggs in the flex. If Jacobs is going to play and you like Jacobs over Ruggs, which you probably should, you play the Las Vegas player in your flex and leave OBJ in your RB or in your wide receiver 2 spot.
Yeah,
because
that's how you have to play it.
I would play OBJ over Damian Harris in the flex, but because of the Monday night situation, you play Las Vegas in your flex.
Right. Yep.
So for me, I'm taking Ruggs over OBJ, just to be noted, but you have to play him in the flex.
I still got to do last week's notes.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so I don't think I'm playing Damian Harris this year or this week.
This year at all. Forget
this year at all. He's done. Just cut him. I would actually love to add him as my RB2, so go ahead and do that.
He's a starter on some teams.
Right. But I think this week is going to be really rough. Last week they showed that if they're behind, they're not running the ball with him at all. He had like maybe 6 carries and no catches, and he's not a pass catching back. Even without James White, like he's not doing anything. I think it's going to be more of the same this week for him. And so I agree with Ty. I think you put OBJ at wide receiver 2, and then you play one of the Raiders at the flex and let Damian Harris and his like 7 carries for the week sit.
Yep.
You see that, Andy? He agreed with me.
That's what I said too.
I know that's why I laughed.
All right, so let's move on. Just keep things rolling. Duo has Robert Woods. What are we doing with Robert Woods? Because it's really like the rest of his team is pretty set. Is there anybody that you'd sit, bench him for? What are we doing? Bobby Trees.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, right? Where Woods has not been good for enough games that Jesus. I think you could talk about benching them, but then you look at their bench and they've got White who's hurt, Landry who's hurt, Juju's hurt, Roundtree's not getting touches, Patrick for the Niners isn't getting touches. So then it's Rondale Moore, who's of all the guys in the world, the biggest boom bust that there is. So it just comes down to, are you swinging for the fences or are you content to get 3 to 6 points out of Bobby Woods? This week, with Derrick Henry playing the Jets on the other side, I think I might be tempted to swing for the fences and get Rondale Moore in there. But these guys got to drop some of this dead weight. Jarvis Landry's not worth holding on to. I'm sorry, but he's just not. If he's hurt for more than one game, cut his ass. James White is for sure cuttable. He's hurt pretty bad, and he probably wasn't worth rostering in the first place. Get him off your team. Like, there's guys on waivers that are going to do more for you than, at this point, Robert Woods in your starting lineup is. And some of these guys on your bench are not guys who should be on a starting roster right now. So fix that, and then we'll have something to talk about next week.
All right. So I did say, is he the bed or the breakfast half is going to be covered pretty tough. I think that leaves Woods open. You looking at his bench, of course, he's keeping Woods in because there's no other option. But I think this is the game that Woods finally puts up maybe 80, 85 yards and a touchdown and has a solid fantasy day. So, but I think Arizona is going to try to cover Kupp because that's the big threat and try to single up Woods. And Morning Wood's going to go ahead and get him some.
I tried to make that call last week and came away looking stupid, so hope it works.
Well, I'm making that call this week, and I'm going to come away looking stupid probably, but that's my go-to.
Warrior's not making that call because Kupp's on his team, so.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's hard to double Kupp because he plays in the slot. It's just hard to double someone in the slot. That being said, I don't think that the Rams and Arizona game will be a shootout. So it's very possible that Bobby Trees ends up with the 80 yards and a touchdown. But I think it's almost equally possible for Rondale Moore to end up with the same or better, 2 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, who knows. This one's tough for me, but I think I'm benching Robert Woods because he just hasn't done anything. I think I need to see it from him, similar to Allen Robinson at this point. I know that Rondale Moore can do it at least. So I think I'm probably throwing in Rondale Moore. I agree with Andy. I think that he'll probably need Rondale Moore. He'll need points out of that position. You can't just take 6 or 7 points and expect to win. So I'm going to go with Rondale Moore.
I mean, they fed AJ Green and Christian Kirk last week more than Rondale Moore. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen there. So I'm sticking with Woods because he's number 2 there. Whether or not they give him the ball is a different story, but I think this is the week they do it.
You say he's number 2, and like, I mean, on paper I agree, but Deshaun Jackson looked better than him. What's his face? Vance Jefferson or whatever looked better than him. Like, Robert Woods just looked like he was just out there, like just running routes for no reason.
I think he's still the number 2, so I'm not worried about that yet. Anyway, who's winning this matchup?
I've got Robbie. I think Henry has a big week. I think Wilson has a big week. I think Higbee has a big week, which is going to cover up some of the stink of Gaskin and whatever his flex ends up being. And I like Calvin Ridley this week against the Washington secondary, which has been atrocious. But beyond that, I'm not super jazzed about anybody on the duos team. Josh Allen's a stud, but in a game against Houston, that game, I mean, they kept the foot on the gas last week, so maybe they do it again, but I'm not banking on that. So I like Robbie's team better.
Yeah, I agree. Ridley against Washington's rough. He's already had a rough year. We've talked about the wide receiver 2 spot there. Like, neither option is super great. Miles Sanders, I think, could have a really good week against KC. They're one of the worst run defenses in the league. But if they're playing from behind and not running the ball, could be a problem. And Chris Carson against San Francisco could not do as well as what he's been doing, just because San Francisco does have a good defensive line. So, like, anything that duo gets as far as a benefit for his matchups, there's like a partner, some other player that gets as equally a bad matchup. So I'm going to go with Robbie.
Real quick, does anybody know how many carries Miles Sanders had against the Cowboys on Monday night?
Not a lot. 3?
Yeah, I was gonna say 2 or 3.
He had 2 carries.
I mean, they were behind early and often.
I don't care. 2 carries for your starting running back is bad.
Right. And it could happen again against KC, but they also have a bad, like, running defense. So if they can keep it close early, then I could see Sanders having a decent matchup. But that's rough either way.
All right. On that note, I'm taking Robbie as well. Let's move on. Let's jump to Colin versus Paul. Do we even need to talk about this matchup, or do we just let Paul win again? I'm just curious how this works.
All right, to be clear, nobody's letting Paul win. Paul's kicking our asses.
Well, I mean, are we all just going to pick Paul again? My fault. Not just letting him win. But all right, let's start with Colin. Colin's really, I think the only thing Colin's looking at is his flex spot. You're not sitting Najee. You're not sitting Jonathan Taylor at this point. You're not sitting Hopkins or Diggs. You got Hollywood Brown in the flex currently. But you've got the tandem of Waddle and Fuller on the bench. You've got Ayuk on the bench. And you got Mr. Patterson that apparently is Atlanta's newfound weapon. So what are you doing in that flex spot, Andy?
I'm not playing Hollywood Brown against the Denver secondary. I am going to keep saying it until I am proven wrong. The Denver secondary is historically good this year. So I'm
historically bad at throwing the ball.
I mean, Hollywood dropped 3 touchdowns last week, 2.5. One of them he might not have made it, but so he had the yips against not a good defense. Lord knows what's going to happen when somebody actually covers him.
Dan Campbell's going to break some kneecaps, so he was worried.
Right. So looking at it, Colin has the misfortune of playing against Paul this week. And in my eyes, and people may handle their team differently. In my eyes, that means you got to swing for the fucking fences or you don't have a chance. And there is one guy on his bench that is a swing for the fences guy, and that's Will Fuller.
Okay.
So, Will Fuller in the flex for me. Sorry, Ty, I know you thought I was going to say Ayuk, but it's got to be Will Fuller for me.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just feed off that, and I'm going to just say Ayuk.
I know you are.
I'm predictable. What can I say? If you're young or a Niner, you're starting in my lineup. I don't know what else to say. Ayuk finally got involved. I mean, he had 6 targets. It's not near Debo's 10 average targets. But Kittle got involved again as well. So I think the Niners are finally kind of getting back to that game plan of spreading the ball out. Ayuk is still talented. I don't know what the hell happened those first 2 weeks. But if you're swinging for the fences, Ayuk could go for 100 yards and a touchdown or 2. I mean, there's no reason he couldn't, other than you got Kittle and Debo as well. But if he starts getting the targets because Ayuk's getting covered, Debo's getting covered, and Kittle's getting covered, I don't trust that run game. I mean, I know Shanahan's going to use it, but I think they're going to have to pass the ball more and spread it around, and that could go any which way. And so I'm swinging with Ayuk this week. So, boy, what do you got?
Flex?
I'm probably leaving Marquis Brown on the bench. I like him a lot. He's had a ton of chances, and I think he will continue to get those chances throughout the year. But against Denver, you kind of have to bench him. I'm with Ty on this one. I think I'm going Ayuk. Watching the game the other night, he was getting a lot of looks. He didn't get I guess the credit for a lot of the targets he got, because there was a couple of them that they got pass interference calls on and stuff like that. But it was clear that they were trying to get him the ball more often, and that he was out of whatever doghouse, or that his injury was no longer hampering him. So I'm going to go Ayuk, because they're 2 out of those 3 players that Ty mentioned, Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk, 2 of 3 will have good games every week. And it's kind of a crapshoot to determine who it's going to be. I'm okay taking the chance with Ayuk against Seattle, who has a bad defense, and kind of roll those dice, because I think you're rolling the dice either way.
You're definitely rolling the dice either way.
Yep. All right. So anyway, let's move on to Paul's team. Paul's got Hubbard that happened to cover his CMC injury. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Paul.
He's got Gronk that currently says he's questionable. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think Gronk is going to play. So you're playing Gronk in New England. I don't imagine anybody starting Goddard over Gronk at this point.
Probably not. Although that's going to be a positive game script for Goddard against Kansas City, where they're going to have to be throwing. But yeah, I think the Tom Brady
Zach
show
Ertz got some looks last week.
He caught the touchdown last week. So yeah, I'm not benching Gronk.
Yeah. And Ertz had 6 or 7 targets and had a good push down the late end of the game. So I don't know.
Ty, he's way too old for you.
My bad. And he's a tight end, so forget it. Boyer, you're keeping Gronk in?
Yeah, I mean, Gronk is questionable due to old age, not because he can't play. So he's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. What are your guys' thoughts on Deontay Johnson? Are we assuming he's playing this week?
I mean, I think if he's playing,
We're playing him.
I would play him unless it sounds really hairy. If he's not, I'm playing Edmonds, and I'm okay with that. I think Edmonds can have an okay game against the Rams, catching passes. In the same way that I didn't like Connor, I do like Edmonds a little bit this week. But if Deontay's healthy, I'm playing him.
Okay. Boyer, what are you doing with that flex? If Deontay's healthy, you're playing him?
I mean, if he's healthy, sure. But if he's questionable healthy, I'm going Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones against Cincinnati, not a terribly great defense. And Marvin Jones has 9 targets, 11 targets, and 8 targets. So I'm going to chase the volume there, expect him to get 8 to 10 targets and hope that he ends up with, 70 yards and maybe a touchdown. But I think if Deontay Johnson is like healthy and is confident, Green Bay secondary is pretty good. I would expect him to get the Jair Alexander treatment, which does kind of scare me a little bit. But I think you have to, just because his volume will be 14, 15 targets, especially with the way Roethlisberger's been playing. But he's got to be healthy for me to believe in that. Otherwise, I'm going Marvin Jones all day.
All right. I would agree with you. I'm also putting Marvin Jones in there in the flex, assuming Deontay's not fully healthy. If he has any questionable tag, I'm not starting him. I'm playing Marvin Jones on that volume. Who's going to win this matchup?
Paul.
Boyer?
I'm going to go with Paul.
Paul? Kapow. Yeah, because he's got the CMC handcuff, I think he'll be fine. I'm also taking Paul. So, with that, let's move on to Walker versus Charlie. Andy, you take us on that one.
All right, let's do it. Charlie? All right. So Walker has a couple of options. He's currently got Pollard in at the flex, and Mike Davis as his RB2 against the Washington defense, which has been pretty stout against the run. I'm leaving Julio and Cooper, obviously, because those are some of his only good players. But given what we've seen out of Tony Pollard so far, I think I would move Pollard up to RB2 and Davis down to being the odd man out that could be talked about in the same breath as some of these other guys like Antonio Brown, DJ Chark, Leonard Fournette. Walker, your team's bad. This is just not fun for anybody. Mike Davis is losing touch.
AJ Green had a good week last week.
Oh yeah, and Christian Kirk also plays football. So I guess I'd be tempted to play Antonio Brown if he's off the COVID list because of that big Tom Brady game that we're all talking about. If not Antonio Brown, then DJ Chark against the Bengals, because you can't afford to take your 6 points out of Mike Davis and be happy with it against Charlie's team, which is significantly better than yours. You got to hope that Chark puts up 80 and a touchdown and gets you 14 points. So that's where I'm at. Fellas, what do you think?
I'm playing Antonio Brown if he's back off the COVID list, which it sounds like he should be.
Yeah, I think it's enough time.
If not, I would go with Christian Kirk because I'm not sold on Rondale Moore yet. And Kirk has had 2 good games this year.
Sure.
So I would take Christian Kirk, just praying for the shootout of LA versus Arizona.
Fair enough. And are you taking him over Pollard or Davis?
Over Davis.
Okay.
Pollard's got Carolina, and that's not a great defensive matchup either, but they've been giving him the volume. He could put a touchdown in just based on the fact that Dallas can score points.
Fair. What do you think?
Davis is only getting, half the volume there at Atlanta, and they play Washington. So I'm going to go Pollard at my RB spot regardless, because the I guess the targets and things that he gets is more valuable than Davis's run against the between the tackles and get stuffed and then let Cordarrelle Patterson do all the other stuff. I don't get that team at this point. But I'm going to go with Pollard there. And then for flex, Antonio Brown is the clear choice there. Christian Kirk is my backup because he is like wide receiver 13 or something stupid. He's shockingly good. And like even in week 2, when Rondale Moore went off, he still had just over 6 points, which is a decent enough floor. So like, I'm not worried about Christian Kirk at this point. And you're chasing the upside, especially with the rest of his team of, can I get 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Kirk is capable of doing, especially if they end up in a shootout. So Antonio Brown in the Brady revenge game, and then Christian Kirk is my option if he's not available.
Fair enough. On Charlie's side, are you benching Tyler Boyd against the Jaguars or Devonta Smith against the Chiefs? In it might not be a true shootout, but they're going to have to throw in that game for sure. Are you benching either of those guys for Elijah Mitchell if he's healthy?
Yes.
Yeah.
If Elijah Mitchell is healthy and playing and starting, I'm absolutely starting Elijah Mitchell. I think Sermon proved to us that he's not capable of taking the reins of the 49ers running game. I think Shanahan would much prefer to have Mitchell. So I'm fine with Mitchell over both those guys. I think I'd prefer Boyd over Jacksonville because of the matchup. Devonta Smith was in a matchup where they had to throw a bunch. And he did jack diddly squat. So I'd prefer Boyd's floor, especially with who he's playing against in this case, which is Walker's terrible team. Take your points, take your win, and go home.
Yeah, Rager was getting a lot of the late game targets. And that could change week to week. As long as Higgins is out again or limited, which I imagine he is, I'm keeping Boyd in my lineup this week. Mitchell fits the Niners run game better. He is more of an outside runner, can do more than Sermon's up the middle. Elijah Mitchell is a better pass catching back. All around, Mitchell fits the Niners run scheme better. I'm playing him 100% of the times over Smith at this point, just for the sake of his floor is going to be higher. And to be honest with you, I think his ceiling can be just as high as Smith, even though, Smith is going to get some of those long targets, but Mitchell can have a couple of huge runs. I'm playing Mitchell if he's healthy. That's my start.
Fair enough. I will side with you guys. You won me on the floor argument. I do like Devonta Smith against the KC defense. But you sold me with the floor argument. Charlie's playing Walker. So if Mitchell's healthy, even if Sermon's going to get touches because Mitchell has been coming off of this shoulder issue, this is Seahawks defense has given up a lot on the ground, and there should be points for him there. So lock in what you can get.
I'll say if you watch the game, Sermon looked like he was like stuck in molasses half of his runs. Like he's a between the guards type guy, and they need someone who can go outside and hit those outside zones. And Sermon's not it.
And Sermon had that one nice little cutback for his touchdown dive, but other than that, he was mediocre. So Mitchell should get most of the workload when he's back and healthy.
Yeah, can we talk again how bad the 49ers beat writers are for not telling us how bad Sermon was?
No, we're not going to talk about it again because we're already running long on time.
Anybody picking Walker?
We're all taking Walker to lose, yeah.
Yep. All right. Me too. Charlie.
Sounds good.
Luck.
All right. Don't screw that one up. All right, Andy, hit us with our new Dad Joke segment. Hit us with a nice good one here.
Well, after a couple of weeks of these real quick hitters from the Tylers, I'm going to bring us back down with a nice long meandering story. So Jacob, the young lad in high school, looking for a date to prom. and he's had a crush on this girl Jessica for years, and finally worked up the courage to ask her to prom. And she said, Jacob, you're kind of a goof off, and I wouldn't mind going to prom with you, but I really need to see that you're not going to be immature about this. I'll only go with you if you promise to, be really classy and treat me like a queen. Well, Jacob's been crushing on this girl for years. So he said, yeah, whatever you want, I will absolutely do that. And you know what he does? He spends all of the next week getting ready for his date. He goes to the florist and he waits in line because everybody's getting ready for prom. And he waits and he waits and he waits and he's looking at the flowers and he's thinking, man, I could be out egging people's houses right now, but it's worth it for Jessica. And he waits in line. He's at the florist's for over an hour, finally gets up to the front and says, I need the most beautiful corsage. Buys it, last one on the shelf, puts it in his car, beautiful pink rose corsage. And he's like, all right, step one. And then he gets fitted for his tux. Huge line ahead of him. And he's waiting. He's like, this thing's going to be super uncomfortable. It's probably itchy. I'm not super jazzed about it. I could be doing donuts with Tommy, but problem with Jessica, it's worth it. He was patient at the tux place for over 2 hours, finally got measured, got his rental squared away, picks it up the day before. He says, oh, shit, I forgot to book a limo. So he goes to the limo place, has to wait in line. Everybody's there picking up their limos for prom. He begs and pleads with the owner. He says, is there anything that you can give me? He says, I've been standing in line for half a day. I'm in my tux. I'm sweaty. I want to get to prom. I want to take this girl. I'm hoping to get lucky. I've been crushing on her for 3 years. And the guy says, all we have left is a stretch Hummer. It's pretty expensive. Jacob says, I don't care what it costs. I'm doing it. So he forks over $500 to rent the stretch Hummer for the night. He drives to Jessica's house, or he gets driven to Jessica's house, picks her up. She says, wow, you really went all out. This is amazing. I can't wait to spend this magical night with you. So they go to the dance. They're having a good time. And while they're there, they're dancing. They're getting a little sweaty. Jessica says, would you mind giving me something to drink? And he says, of course. So he goes over. And he gets there. And what does he see? There's no punchline.
Huh? Huh? Huh?
All right. That was good. That was good.
Got me.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. That was solid.
It took you a long time to get to having no punchline.
I think that was kind of the joke.
Oh, was it?
The poor guy had been waiting in line at all the places that he went to. I think he was pretty relieved to see there was no line for punch.
Oh, all right. Andy, after that joke, you want to hit us with a real quick power rankings? Just give us some of the major updates, changes. How far did I drop after losing again?
Yeah, so I made 2 changes this week. I'll just run down it real quick. I still have Paul, Jeremy, me, Tyler, Colin as the top 5. So Ty, your team's still good. It's just your opponent is better each week. So sorry about that. And then at number 6, I've got Robbie up 2 spots. I flipped Robbie and Fryer. So Chris stays at number 7. Fryer's down to number 8. Charlie's still at number 9. I've got Boyer up to number 10. Duo at 11. And then Walker at 12. Duo at 11. Josh Allen went off last week for 37 points, and they still managed to put up 88 points. So I don't like almost their entire team. Calvin Ridley's having a hard time. The Atlanta offense looks pretty bad, and he's really the only other guy that I am even interested in on their team besides Josh Allen. So sorry guys, it's been a dud of a year for you so far.
My team gained a yard.
Good work, little Giants.
I'm not super thrilled that you guys picked the guy that dropped down to 8th to beat me this week.
He's got Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's in Foxborough. So
it's just a bad week.
it's only
man.
because he's playing you, Ty, that he's going to score 130 points and kick your ass.
All right, fair enough.
Next week he'll be bad again.
I'll say blowout of the week.
That's not true because hopefully
I'm
I'll put
not going that far.
All right. Anything good for this week?
It's my little brother Brian's birthday. Not that anybody cares, but
We don't.
it is.
Yeah. Happy birthday,
Brian.
Brian. That's not even going to listen to the podcast. I don't care about our birthdays, so I definitely don't care about your brother's birthday. On that note, I like you guys a little bit. If you like, subscribe, comment, I'll like you even more.
Comment, how was my dad joke this week? I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah. How was this punchline?
There
On
was a
that,
punchline.
on that, we'll see you guys next week. Good luck this week. And Fryer, I hate you. I better win a week. See ya.